Let's get to the other big matchup. Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the New England Patriots. So much to unpack in this one because over the last few years, obviously, maybe the two top teams in the AFC year in, year out. But the Patriots have the Steelers' number since about 2011, I think it was the last time that they lost. And, of course, Tom Brady absolutely tears apart the Pittsburgh defense, and they've tried different things against him. I think that's the biggest thing. When you're looking at this matchup, the Steelers generally like to blitz a lot. We've seen Brady pick apart the blitz. They tried to go three-man rush in the AFC Championship a couple years ago. That was too easy for the Patriots as well. Last year, they tried to play man coverage. They hate playing man coverage. They did it anyway. They slowed the Patriots down until the fourth quarter, and they couldn't cover Gronk.
Yeah. And
Brady had his highest graded game of the year. So what do the Steelers do this time?
Well, that's the most fascinating thing about this matchup is you don't often see two teams playing each other, and one of them has literally no idea what they should be doing to try and stop the other one, right? Yeah. I mean, whether they can achieve it or not is a different matter. You see some teams just can't beat the other team because of a matchup that doesn't work or because of a particular schematic problem. But the Steelers don't know how to stop Tom Brady and the Patriots offense. They've tried everything. They keep cycling through things that they think might work, whether it's something they do well or not. Because and the man coverage thing, I think, was the closest they've come to actually achieving it. It was the right thing to do. There was just an Achilles heel in the system, which is that Sean Davis was one-on-one with Rob Gronkowski, and that was a problem.
And that might not be – so that was kind of like the way you were going to beat New England is to play man coverage. But that was more last year
right.
than this year. This year, New England with Josh Gordon, Julian Edelman, they're much more equipped to handle man coverage. So it's not like there's this perfect blueprint against New England.
No.
Last year, they had to try it. I mean, Miami had success with it, and other teams had a little bit of success with it. The Steelers, they're one of the most zone-heavy teams in the NFL, and they tried to go out of their comfort zone.
Right, and that was last year. This year, they've become a lot more balanced in terms of man-zone coverage, but there's a lot less of an obvious blueprint to defeating the Patriots.
Right.
So now you're back to this, what the hell do they do? Right? And that's the single most fascinating thing in this game is just identifying exactly what defensive game plan the Steelers come out with, because they've tried everything against this team to try and beat their nemesis, essentially, and get further into the playoffs and actually try and win another Super Bowl. And they always have faith that their offense can score, but they can't win the shootout yet because the Patriots will typically find a way of slowing them down, and they just haven't been able to do it the other way.
Since 2015, Tom Brady's grade when facing the Steelers, 95.4. They played in the regular season. They've played 4 times. Regular season 2015, twice in 2016, late last year. So it's just I just cut it as a 4-game sample, but 95.4 PFF grade. Completing about 70% of his passes, plus another 10 drops. So only 1 turnover-worthy play. That was last year, 11 big-time throws. So Brady has definitely carved them up. We saw the Steelers a couple weeks ago getting torn up by Keenan Allen against linebackers.
Yeah.
And again, if they play that same type of coverage, that's Julian Edelman's going to have 15 catches, right?
Yeah.
James White. Where the Steelers are a little bit better this year, Joe Hayden on the outside and Mike Hilton, they could do some pretty good stuff as far as matching up with the Patriots. This feels like one of those games where it gets back to a middle-of-the-field game for the Patriots passing attack against the Steelers linebackers, who statistically are some of the worst in the NFL passer rating against, touchdowns against, yards per attempt. So I think it's a middle-of-the-field game for New England passing offense.
Yeah, the Steelers' defense is interesting because they consistently play better than you think they should looking at their talent level, but only against bad to below average teams.
Well, look at the breakdown here. Since 2015, you want to see these are the QB grades, right?
Got?
So you got Brady at 95. You have Derek Carr at 88. Phillip Rivers at 78. Those are all good grades. Those are pretty good quarterbacks. The bottom end of the list, this is quarterbacks with at least 50 attempts against the Steelers. Austin Davis with a 34 grade. Tyrod with a 48 grade. A.J. McCarron, 52. Deshaun Kaiser, 56. Flacco, 58. Fitzpatrick, 61. Bortles, 62. Dalton, 65. So they do pretty well against the bad quarterbacks.
Right.
And this would happen for a lot of teams. But remember the Chiefs a couple years ago? We always said the Chiefs have had good games against Brady. They had good games against Peyton and better quarterbacks.
So this defense generally overachieves against poor opposition. and then gets exposed when they come up against really good opposition.
Yes.
And I think it's almost like they underachieve against the best and overachieve against the worst, and it kind of evens out to somewhere in the middle. But it means that when they go up against a team like the Chargers, they just get carved to pieces.
Right.
And typically when they run up against the Patriots, they get really badly exposed, and that's their biggest problem. You want an interesting stat?
Yes,
for
I do.
For the Steelers defense? Bud Dupree, a player we don't exactly love, hasn't been grading particularly well, has 38 total pressures this season.
Yep.
10 of which were unblocked.
Wow.
So more than a quarter.
And he's rushed 403 times.
Yes. More than a quarter of Bud Dupree's total pressure this season has come unblocked.
Yeah.
That's a ridiculous level.
It's not great.
No.
Somewhat along those lines, but TJ Watt, it's just the way the Steelers play. TJ Watt's dropped into coverage. He's an edge rusher. He's dropped into coverage 107 times.
Yeah.
And he's got 10 sacks. So he's not a great coverage player. Again, from a matchup standpoint, this is the type of stuff that New England generally likes to go against. Other side of the ball, some Big Ben numbers that I tweeted out.
Uh-huh.
He's got the 5th highest percentage of uncatchable passes beyond the sticks. And the rest of the guys that he's with in the bottom 5, Mitch Trubisky, it's all the rookies. Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, and then Big Ben. And this goes back to what we've been saying all season. He's got the big-time throws. He's number 5 in that this year. He's still making special plays, but he is missing way more throws than he ever has.
Right, and so many of them have been targeting Antonio Brown. Right. So
That's a
Antonio
big part of
Brown, his
decline.
grade is the worst of his career, I think, at this point. And it's not because he's worse. Like Antonio Brown didn't become worse in the last 12 months. It's because, he's a relatively quarterback-dependent receiver, right? He's not this physically imposing monster who can get big plays regardless of who the quarterback is. We've seen throughout his career, it's usually when Ben Roethlisberger goes down hurt and Landry Jones comes in, or
That's
Josh
more Landry
Dobbs.
Jones' fault.
But that's what I'm saying, right? This is the point I'm making, is that the quarterback comes in, it's the backup, and he's terrible, and suddenly Antonio Brown's production dries off. It dries away. It disappears. He had that run of 5 catches and 50 yards every single game of his career, and then that was broken, I think, when Landry Jones came in.
Yep.
It's like you literally can't stop this guy from getting production except when the quarterback is terrible. Now, this season, it's kind of been the same story, except the terrible quarterback play has been Ben Roethlisberger. Like in the past, it's always been when he goes down, the guy coming in off the bench is terrible,
right,
and he can't get Antonio Brown the ball. This time, it's been Roethlisberger who can't get him the ball. He's just been missing him way too much. Now, you're still getting a lot of incredible plays from Ben Roethlisberger, but for whatever weird reason, they've almost all gone to Juju Smith-Schuster. He hasn't been making the plays to Antonio Brown, which is where they normally go.
That's a good point.
And so many of the misses have gone to Antonio Brown. Like Antonio Brown's catch percentage at the moment is 62. Michael Thomas is catching almost 90% of his passes.
It's really low for
Antonio Brown is at 62.
And I haven't rechecked the numbers, but highest percentage of just uncatchable passes thrown that way, it's been Antonio Brown pretty much.
It's 10% lower than Juju's.
Yep. New England, I've told Patriots fans, hey, they've got our number 2 coverage grade overall. And I think every team in the NFL, except maybe Bears fans, just hates their pass coverage this year. Our defense is terrible. But the Patriots overall have covered extremely well. But last week was a disaster even before the Miami Miracle. 42.1 coverage grade last week against Miami, by far their lowest of the season. But they were coming off 2 of their best against the Jets and Vikings. This is an important matchup. Stephon Gilmore's our number 2 graded corner. Him going up against Juju and Antonio Brown's going to be a big one.
Did you spend an extended period on the podcast talking about the Miami Miracle on Monday?
No, we saved all of the. We don't have time for an extended period, but we saved all the rugby discussion for you. You going to do a video on this again? That thing went big time on all the rugby blogs.
It went big time. This is a beautiful example of simple rugby principles, and the addition of Gronk as a free safety will give you a touchdown.
That's all you have to do. Gronk is no Jimmy Sexton.
You execute some simple Johnny Sexton.
Johnny Sexton.
You execute some simple rugby principles.
Johnny Sexton. And
you put Rob Gronkowski at free safety, and you'll get a try. Touchdown.
John Sexton was a pitcher on my college team.
Yeah,
he was a senior my freshman year.
Probably not the same guy.
Football coach.
Right.
Well, he could be.
It could be. Probably,
we didn't call him Johnny though, so it's probably it was John Sexton.
Yeah.
John, if you're listening, shout out to you, or Johnny if you're listening. Possible. So we're all taking New England except Neil, and Gordon, both taking Pittsburgh.
Wow.
Is this the year that Pittsburgh, and they're at home,
Yeah.
help a little bit. Let me just sum it up real quick with
Plus,
this.
they fixed the rule that screwed them last time.
That's true. That would have been a catch. Pittsburgh, New England won, but Pittsburgh played, I think, a perfect game last year. They controlled the clock, kept it out of New England's hands.
Other than the Sean Davis-Gronk thing.
Other than that. But the game flow was in their favor.
Yeah.
They kept the ball away from Brady for the most part, but then they gave the ball back to the Patriots in the fourth quarter and couldn't stop them. Brady and Gronk were both incredible. Right. They even got a turnover. I mean, there was a lot of good in last year's match.
That's why I'm saying it was the right call. There was a problem, right? There was an Achilles heel in that defensive scheme. And to be honest, they're probably better equipped to do it this year. Now, it might not matter because, like we said, it's not the same silver bullet that it was a year ago against the Patriots. But
I'm looking forward to seeing it. It's going to be a good cat and mouse game again.